So thank you, Bishop. Just that I'll do that. Just that it's understood that it's not a second sermon. Because in the Catholic Church, we're not used to doing two sermons, right? We do only one. So this is not. No. So thank you for the invitation that has brought me here, and thank you, confirmandi, for having allowed me to be part of this celebration tonight. In fact, the reason for the bishop's invitation was that I'll be leaving town very early tomorrow, and he was so solicitous for me and about me, knowing that, the time we have to leave for the airport is going to be said that I probably may not be able to say Mass on Sunday. So this was an occasion for me to do a Sunday Vigil Mass. So tomorrow, if I spend the whole day in flight, then at least I would reach Rome on Monday morning, having fulfilled my obligation. So thank you, Bishop, for that. It is true what the bishop said. I was made bishop by Pope John Paul II, invited to serve in Rome or in the Vatican by Pope Benedict, and now I work with Pope Francis. So I've seen the three popes. John Paul II, as we all know, invited and elected pope, came from a different background. He came from Poland that was struggling for independence and freedom from Russia. And that spirit accompanied him when he came to the Vatican. And so it was a big factor in Poland's fight for freedom and solidarity as a people and a nation. Pope Benedict, on the other hand, was a professor, a theological thinker for that matter, who spent a lot of time trying to make the mysteries and the different doctrines of the church understandable in all its senses. And that was his profession, a theological teacher and a professor for that matter. And from that, he became a pope and carried that charism. So when he resigned, and the cardinals got together and chose to be Pope Francis, he came from the Latin American world, Argentina, having a little bit of experience with popular movements, the cartoneros, people who walk around the night, pick cartons and then try to shape them into something that they can sell, or the campesinos, people who struggle for the land and all of that. So from that background, he also became a pope, and working with the three popes, I am invited to recognize the fact that when God calls people for leadership in his church, he calls them from whatever particular background they have, and from that background, they come to make a contribution to the leadership of the church. And the contribution John Paul II made is slightly different from the contribution that Benedict made, and so presently also with Pope Francis. And the question is not for me, having worked with the two and now working with the third, Pope Francis. For me, it's an invitation to open up for the diversity of styles of leadership, or the richness with which each of these candidates come to the papacy to exercise leadership for the church. And so it's an invitation to see complementarity, to see how, from the different backgrounds, they all come with their contribution to build up the church. And building up the church, that's just what we celebrated in confirmation. If you were to look at Paul's letter to the Corinthians, chapters 13 and 14, Paul tells us that all of us have received gifts, different gifts from the Spirit, with which we have built up the church. Building up the church, that's why the Lord bestows His Spirit on us. the different gifts that the Lord bestows on us is to enable us from the diversity of gifts and talents to build up his church. And that's what the different popes come to do. And working in Rome, of course, I talk about this because there's a tendency for people to compare the popes and pitch one against the other. My sense is that it's an invitation to be open to diversity. Just as there are diversity of gifts with which we come to build up this church. If we all had the same gift, then there will not be any enrichment in building up the church. But from the diversity of the gifts that the Holy Spirit bestows on us, from our diversity, we come to promote and to build up this church as Paul invites us to do. And it's the same in Rome. So Pope Francis, coming from the Latin American world, he led the bishops of Latin America as their secretary when they met in Aparecida in a meeting and a conference. And as a secretary, he celebrated with the Latin American bishops the challenges of Latin America in his day. And that was the challenges of the Amazon forest. And what was happening to the Amazon forest was the challenges of the shift of the economy of Argentina to be a heavily indebted economy, and so very many other experiences in Latin America. With that experience now, he's elected Pope, and he comes to the papacy with this type of experience. So Pope Francis then is a Pope who's very, very, very conscious and very sensitive to issues of the environment. And so, as you know, having been elected, the first public celebration he had in St. Peter's was the feast of St. Joseph, as the guardian or the custodian or the caretaker of the sacred of the family, of the Holy Family. And on that occasion, the Pope reflected on the role of Joseph as the caretaker of the family, of the Holy Family, Jesus and Mary. The Pope said, we all invited to exercise the same care. Care not for the sacred family as Joseph did, but care for some other situations that we do have in our world, particularly the environment, which has been depleted and abusedly used in several places, and a care for the poor ones in our midst. So from care of Joseph for the Holy Family, Pope Francis started talking about invitation to care for the earth and to care for the poor. Bishop told you that I come from Ghana. That is the case. And I was born in a mining town. A mining town run by, started with the English because Ghana was colonized by the English. It's a manganese mining town. And so I grew up in a mining setting. And I know how the dynamite tore up the surfaces of the earth to, as it were, disembowel the wealth of the earth. And Ghana used to be called Gold Coast before independence. And that just means that there's so much gold in Ghana that after heavy rainfall, you're likely to see some gold wash out. And this wealth of Ghana has also become now our problem, because we're mining gold in the rivers and in every conceivable waterways to the point that potable water now in Ghana is a problem. We destroyed all our waterways looking for gold, so much so that the water to drink now has become a problem for us. So the challenge of human beings and how we deal with our environment is something that Pope Francis is talking about. In his encyclical letter, Laudato Si, the care is that. And he uses a very rich imagery. We all family members here. If a child or a baby will start crying in a family, I think the parents will drop and stop everything to go and tend to the child, try to find out what is making the child cry. Pope Francis uses this imagery of the cry and then says, two things are now crying to us for a response. The cry of the earth, from the way it's variously used and abused, and the cry of the poor in our midst from the inequalities and everything that happened. So that's what we're doing, but we talk about all of this not out of any nostalgic sense of anything, but it basically because one of the biggest principles of the Catholic Church, and indeed of all Christian churches, is the fact that having been created by God, we are first and foremost gift of God, and that we are person. And when we talk about a person or personality in the Catholic Church, we're talking about the dignity of everybody created by God. So Pope Francis's concern for the poor is not simply because of the economic condition, but it's because they live in a situation which enables it difficult for them to realize their dignity, which is what God created them with. So if you want to restore dignity to every person, then we force also to look at the conditions which make the realization of their dignity difficult. And that's become our job. So the point that, our dicastery has this problem, has this, challenge of helping local churches deal with this situation and try to, suggest all kinds of solutions through our conversations with international organizations of different kinds. So on the one hand, the concern is for creation through different conversations. Our office is not, we're not into the talk of divesting from anything. Our office is engaged right in conversation. We engage people, we talk with people, we share with them the principles of the church's teaching and enable them to reflect themselves and then decide on transition or new type of things they need to do. So we've held 5 seminars with CEO of mining companies about how to do mining in a way that the local population are not adversely affected by mining. And we've done 2 such meetings also with CEO of oil and gas companies, not again to accuse anybody of anything, but engage them again in dialogue, so that they also, from the dialogue, will take their own decision. So the church has never imposed anything. We engage in dialogue to enable people to see what we see and to share with them what we think the gospel teaches us. And from that reflection, it enabled them to take a decision about, showing a little bit more concern for creation, a little bit more concern for the poor, a little bit more concern for help people realize their dignities and all the things that we're born with. And so we share with them very interesting situations, examples from all over. For example, about the environment and where a lot of trees are cut, as in parts of Africa and other places. We share with them the interesting story of Poland. In Poland, they celebrate birthdays by planting a tree. And so we offer that example. Everybody celebrates a birthday, so the next birthday, plant a tree. And if everybody on the celebration of birthday will plant a tree, we'll get forests back. So those are the type of things that we talk about, including solar power and all of those type of things. But for this evening, we're just glad that confirmed you received the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and the example of the popes is your own example. From the diversity of your gifts and talents, you are supposed to help build up the church. This church and the church in whatever parishes you come from the bestowal of your own gifts and talents from the Holy Spirit, let us build up the Church of God. Is that okay?
That's great. Thank you.